From the GB Newsroom. The UK is boosting its support for Ukraine, pledging a £50 million package of air defence aid. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak confirmed the move during an unannounced visit to Kyiv. He told President Volodymyr Zelensky the UK will continue to stand with the country as it fights to end Russia's barbarous war.
Your homes, your hospitals, your power stations are being destroyed by the air. So to help you defend yourselves, we are today providing new air defence support, including 120 anti-aircraft guns, radar and anti-drone equipment. We're extending our training for the Ukrainian armed forces to include specialist expertise from UK medics and engineers. And we are stepping up our support to help you through the cold, hard winter ahead.
A man being held at an immigration centre in Kent has died. The Home Office says the man arrived in the UK as part of a small boat crossing last week and that he took ill at the Manston Centre yesterday. The facility has come under scrutiny for poor conditions and overcrowding in recent weeks. A post-mortem will take place to determine his cause of death. The chief executive of Rochdale Borough-wide Housing has been sacked after a 2-year-old boy died following prolonged exposure to mould. An inquest heard how the parents of Awab Ishaq have made numerous complaints to the council, but were simply told to paint over it. The council issued a statement saying it was no longer tenable for Gareth Swarbrick to stay on. The government has welcomed the decision, but says the board still has questions to answer. 4 men have been arrested as part of a significant police operation into paramilitary activity in Belfast. Detective Chief Superintendent Andy Hill says a number of weapons were seized.
During the searches, we found 8 firearms, a large quantity of assaulted ammunition, 3 pipe bombs, which we suspect are viable, balaclavas and UVF emblems and flags. East Belfast UVF continues to be involved in a range of paramilitary crime, including violence, intimidation, money laundering and drug dealing, causing harm to their own communities.
FIFA's president has defended the decision to host the World Cup in Qatar and tried to show empathy during a news conference.
Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled.
Gianni Infantino's comments follow heavy criticism of Doha's treatment of migrant workers and LGBTQ people. He says he's compassionate towards all groups. He also accused the West of hypocrisy, telling European nations they have a lot to answer for. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now let's get back to Mark.
Welcome back, Bethany. Great to see you in the studio again. And this is Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. We start with the People's Hour, in which I'll be taking your video calls on the big stories of the day. Tonight, the stars of the show are Addick in Kent, Amanda in East Sussex. Hi, Amanda. Lars from Windsor, just down the road from the King. Fergus from Greenwich Mean Time. And look at that, look at the product placement. Michaela from Elgin. Hi, Michaela. And a good friend of the show already, Andrew in Essex. Andrew, great to see you again as well. We'll be hearing lots from my wonderful viewers over the next 60 minutes. The topics we will be debating are as follows. On International Men's Day, yes, it's happening today, does society give men too hard a time? Also, will you be watching the World Cup, or is this now a tainted tournament? Is it a tainted tournament? And after the autumn statement this week, is a Labour government now inevitable? And my Saturday sidekick for the first hour of the show is legendary actor, TV presenter and showbiz icon Christopher Biggins. After 9, in my big opinion, enough already with this negativity. Britain needs a dose of good news, and I've got plenty of it. In the big question, after Microsoft announced that they are going to require bosses to disclose consensual relationship with employees, is it wrong to sleep with co-workers? Have you ever been to bed with a colleague? Let me know, Mark at gbnews.uk. I would love to do that at GBNews. Just think of the choice. Nigel, for starters. Plus, we'll get the views of the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield, on a wonderful new poll about King Charles's popularity, a potential return to Twitter for Donald Trump, and Joe Biden at 80. And in the news agenda with my panel, should parents have a say in their children's partner? Is adultery now the norm? Is it acceptable now? And is private medical insurance morally wrong? Plus tomorrow's Sunday papers from 10:20, that's 10 minutes earlier than everyone else, right through until 11. And in my take at 10, my reaction to Meghan Markle's comment that being woke is just being nice. I won't be pulling my punches. This is Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In, so put something cold and fizzy in the fridge or fire up the kettle and let's have a night to remember. Your video calls in just a moment, but first, my look back at the week in Dolan's diary. Justice Secretary Dominic Raab is in hot water over his treatment of civil servants, some of whom have allegedly suffered anxiety as a result of his demands. I think it's nice to see a bit of tough love in a government department. Annoying all of the right people and being serious about getting the job done shouldn't be a source of shame for Dominic Raab, but rather grounds for promotion. The autumn statement brought news of unprecedented tax hikes and spending cuts. Conservative voters don't need to worry about the prospect of a Labour government. After this week, it's pretty clear we've already got one. Prince Harry is to win a humanitarian gong, courtesy of the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Foundation, on December the 6th. This award has previously been received by Bill and Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and Dr. Anthony Fauci. Wow! With fellow winners like that, I doubt his reputation will ever recover. Big demographic news now, and the population of the world has reached 8 billion. That's right, 8 billion. This huge figure doesn't surprise me. Most of them appear to be crossing the English Channel as we speak. The orange one, Donald Trump, has announced his plan to run for president in 2024. Meanwhile, Joe Biden, who turns 80 this week, is rumoured to fancy another 4 years in the White House as well. If an octogenarian Trump versus an octogenarian Biden is the best America has to offer, we're all in trouble. Whatever happened to care homes? And finally, Budweiser are furious after the famous US beer brand will not be allowed to sell their product during World Cup games as a result of Qatari law. This after stumping up £60 million as sponsors of the event. Still, fans can enjoy Bud Zero, the alcohol-free version, which, let's be honest, is as weak and tasteless as the original. Cheers. And Budweiser, if you'd like to sponsor Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In, I'm all ears. Mark at gbnews.uk. Very competitive rates. Speaking of competitive rates, my sidekick for the People's Hour is comedy and TV legend Christopher Biggins. Chris, great to see you.
Good to see you, Mark. Very funny. I loved all that. It was great.
That's very sweet of you. Look, thank you so much for your kind words. Let's talk, shall we, about Dominic Raab, who appears to have upset a few civil servants. Now, you are very much a team player in the world of acting. You've got to have your colleagues, keep them sort of in check and not upset anyone. Lots of big egos. Should he be concerned about his behaviour in the corridors of power?
Yeah, I think he should. I think he looks as though he's difficult. Do you know what I mean? I don't know him, I never met him, but he has that look about him which I don't trust somehow. You know, I feel he could be. I think some people, you know, get the wrong impression because they sort of bundle into a room and take over, and people think that's frightening. You know, and in fact, underneath they're sort of a nice person. But I don't think that with him. I think he really does. He has that mean look. I can see him being mean to secretaries and lower people than him.
He's a bit of a cold fish, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
That's why he'll never be Prime Minister, because I've got no doubt he's a bright chap.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And ambitious as well. But it's just that rather sort of steely exterior that he's got. However, I think many of my viewers will love the idea that there's a government minister cracking the whip with civil servants who are often described as the blob, pushing back on the opportunities of Brexit or not getting back to work post-COVID. I mean, the civil service, we've got amazing civil servants, but a few of them need a kick up the backside, don't they?
And I think that the awful thing is I think they cost so much money, and I think that is one of the problems. You know, it's like the national health is full of people who are taking all the money that we're giving to the national health, not enough in my mind, but they are there and they are paper pushing people who shouldn't really be there. And I think if they weren't, we'd have enough money to actually operate on people and to look after people.
Because we love the nurses and we love the doctors.
Of course.
And we love the cleaners and the porters.
Yeah, who should get some money.
Shouldn't they just? Completely agree. I mean, some people think now that actually, with regards to the NHS, that this debate about does it get enough money is now over, given the fact that I think it's £13,000 per household per year to pay for the NHS, or 40% of all government tax take goes to the NHS. Have we reached that point now where even the public accept it's not about money anymore, but reform?
Well, I think you're right. And I think one of the problems is, I was talking about this last night, funny enough. I was at a charity event. And I think what should happen, like the French, I think we should pay something towards our national, if we have to go to national health. Like, I had 2 operations last year, new knee and new valve put in. And I'd given up my insurance, and it would have cost £50,000 if I paid for it. Now, I think that it was wonderful to go on the national health, but I should have paid something towards that. I've been quite happy to have paid £5,000 or £6,000. £50,000 is too much for anybody to pay, unless you're a billionaire or really rich. But I think, you know, it's about time we sort of rethought the whole national health thing. And I think it's a wonderful thing that we give it free to people. But if you can afford to pay it, I think we should pay something.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's interesting you should say that. I had this debate about education a few months ago on the show with an educational entrepreneur who has a chain of private schools in the north of England that charge parents, I think, about £5,000 a year for private school, which it's a lot of money, but actually the budget for any secondary school child within the state sector is about £10,000 a year.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how perhaps if we just look again at the model of the NHS and possibly consider letting some people pay, that it could be more competitive.
Well, I think it could be, and I think it would be right to be as well, because we can't keep going on taking money from the government. I mean, or, you know, from this bank, which has nothing to do with us, and we take money all the time. I mean, you know, there are grants for this, for that, for, you know, if you're. Quite rightly, there's some concerns that really need to be addressed. But I think on the whole, we take too much. And I think, funnily enough, the Chancellor the other day gave a very good account of what's going to happen. It's going to be tough for the next 2 years. But I think in 2 years' time, things could really get better. And I think we could all benefit from that.
We'll be discussing that later this hour. How's the autumn statement paved the way for a Labour government? But you would say not so fast. Do you think that possibly this partnership of Sunak and Hunt, though not particularly compelling or exciting or entertaining, might just be the safe pair of hands Britain needs?
I think they are, and I was very encouraged the other day. I mean, of course, the press are totally against, and they should be shot because they do say the most terrible things, and, you know, and put people off. But I think they really did a good job the other day. I think there were things in there which are not nice, but, you know, the situation we're in is not nice. We've had 2 years of people, the government giving money to people to keep their jobs or to keep them, you know, happy. And now we've got to look to the fact that we are in trouble.
We are indeed. And I suppose their plan, and I'll be mentioning this in my big opinion monologue at 9, is that we have some tough, unpleasant medicine now. We take the pain now, and by the next election, some of that medicine will have begun to work, and there will be those elusive green shoots of recovery.
Yeah, and I think they will definitely happen. They will be green, and they will be good shoots, and we will thrive on it.
I did speak to the brilliant political journalist Nigel Nelson on the programme a few weeks ago, and he did say that history suggests that the public shift a bit to the right when the economy is in trouble. So do you think that's a factor in the next election?
I hope it is, because I think it would be very good. I mean, interestingly enough, the Chancellor was almost giving a Labour view on the money. where it's coming from. And it's interesting that you know, that could be very true. That is probably what Labour would have done if they were in. But I think it's tough, but I think we've got to go with it. And if we go with it, I think we're in for very good times in the future.
Well, look, I like that positive message from Christopher Biggins, and that's very much the flavour of my big opinion monologue at 9 o'clock. So do stay with us for Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. But next up, it's you, my viewers in the People's Hour. That's right, we've got viewers from across the country giving their views on some of the week's biggest stories. Is the World Cup tainted, or will you be watching this time round? Has this week's autumn statement made a Labour government inevitable? But straight after the break, a cracker of a topic. It's International Men's Day. So is society too hard on men, or do we just need to man up? See you shortly.
On 9 p.m, we've got US News with the Queen of American Media, Kinsey Schofield, and my all-star panel, including political commentator and celebrity dad, Stanley Johnson.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's
news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Steyn. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. And we start, as always, on a Saturday with the People's Hour, your video calls for the first hour of the show. Now, here's something you won't hear on many mainstream media outlets. It's International Men's Day.
Hooray!
And let me get myself cancelled by saying men are amazing. They do all the jobs that others won't want to do, such as coal mining, building bridges and being brave in war. Whilst International Women's Day in March is quite rightly widely celebrated, Men's Day does have a tendency to be unnoticed. So I'll be asking you, the great British public, is society too hard on us blokes? First up to discuss this, I'm delighted to say, we can get a woman's opinion. Michaela from Elgin. Hi, Michaela.
Hello, how are you?
I'm really well. Great to see you, Michaela. Now, of course, my introduction was slightly tongue-in-cheek. And by the way, think of the many female heroes that we've seen in war. And we've got fantastic women in the military, in the police, doing tough jobs as well. But we need to give it up to the boys a bit, don't we?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I feel quite sorry for men in this day and age. Really, you know, traditional roles have moved on quite a bit in time. It used to be more traditional that the man was the provider and, you know, the bringer in of the wealth in the family. But as, I guess, the cost of living has gone on and moved forward, those traditional roles have changed, and sometimes it's both parents that are out to work, both parents that have the duties of the children or the family or care or whatever. It's completely changed, but I don't think that justice is in line with that when you look at it, because regardless of these changes in society, women traditionally still take the children in a divorce. You find that child protection really squeezes men for money when they are divorced and they move on. And men, I don't think it's widely recognised either that men can also be battered and abused as well. There's a huge Me Too movement, but what movements are there for men? You know, there's a lot really that is lacking in society. You know, stereotypes from birth are that men have to sort of not cry, not express their emotions. And as you've said, man up. You know, there's something called the Man Box, which was a huge study in the US, UK and Mexico, all about men and the impact that parents, families, the media, peers had on them. And it was all about, the results were that men will have to be self-sufficient, tough, be physically attractive, have sexual prowess, and use aggression to resolve conflict. And these are published studies, you know, of society expectations, which really put an awful lot of pressure on men. And in the rehab guide, it says that with men, there's a silence of secrecy. And this is covering high levels of depression and self-medicated addiction. So with all that, that creates the suicide, which again is horrific for men, far more than women. Any study will tell you that. And even on the Samaritans, they say males 50 to 54 have the highest rates of suicide. There is a huge need for more support, a positive psychosocietal trajectory for men. It needs to change to address all of these factors and the negative impact on men in our society.
Well, I completely agree. By the way, how fantastic is the People's Hour, where my brilliant viewers do more research and more preparation for their appearance than any so-called expert. Listen, we're going to come straight back to you in just a moment, Michaela, but let's go to Andrew now in Essex. Andrew, why is International Men's Day such a well-kept secret?
In many ways, I have my beautiful Bichon Leo sitting on my lap at the moment. I just thought I'd introduce him. And I know one of your colleagues, Anne Diamond, also has a Bichon. And I watch her on the Breakfast Show. But why I think it's kept secret is that there is this stereotype expectations that men will kind of just put everything to one side and get on with it. I had to go through 2 bereavements and carry on working last year before GB News launched. Still teaching. My gran died and my previous Bichon died. Man up, get on with it. You don't need to take leave. Oh, it's only just a dog. Well, I have 5 hidden disabilities and, there was no compassion there. And, I agree with your last panelist that there is a lot of people who do feel suicidal. I deal with a range of students with a range of various conditions, including mental health, autism, Asperger's, and dyslexia, and they have to get on with things. And it's not fair. And I think actually that the male being told, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. Well, why? Why can the male not have equal compassion? So, for example, if you've got a female on the autistic spectrum who's going through a relationship breakup, I'll give her a rest, give her a bit of extra time. Whereas if it's a gay male, for example, who's also autistic, he needs to get on with it. But why? We need to have more awareness out there. And, the other thing that really annoys me, we have Autism Awareness Week. Well, actually, people need to have acceptance, and then we wouldn't have, people feeling that, they're outsiders. Men need to have their voice. And why should people have to mask their autism?
Too right. Autism can be challenging, but it's also a superpower, isn't it, Andrew? In fact, let's debate autism in the future, especially given the fact that you clearly have a lot of interest in that subject.
Degree in it.
You've got a degree in it. Well, there you go. Honestly, I mean, I'm actually going to get rid of experts now. I'm only going to talk to my viewers. That's the new look for the show. Biggins is the only expert that I'll accept on the show. An expert in entertainment, acting, broadcasting. Listen, Biggins, what the hell is toxic masculinity? And frankly, if there was another war, God forbid, it would come in pretty useful.
I suppose it would, but I mean, I just think that when you think about the war situation, like the First World War and the Second World War, those young men went out and never came back after raid after raid after raid, and they were sent to their deaths, which I think was just appalling. How could they do that? I mean, it's happening now as we speak. And I just find it bizarre that we can't all talk, get round a table and be friends with each other. Why we have to go to war, I just don't understand it. And why young men, I know young women too, but the men were going out in aeroplanes, they were going out on their in fields and going to their death, knowing they would not come back.
I think that's a terribly important point. Biggins, let me go to Biggins and let me go to Andrew and also our wonderful female viewer, Michaela. First of all, Biggins, what's the best thing about men?
They're very attractive, some of them. No, I think actually, to begin with, I have to say, I had no idea that we were on International Men's Day today. I've never heard of it before. And I think it's great that we're celebrating because the men are wonderful. Men are fantastic. Not just because I'm gay, am I saying that, but I think they are wonderful. They lead families. They marry. They have children. They look after us. I've never had children, so I'm rather selfish in that way. But I think it is wonderful that men take the lead. And, I think women quite like that. I mean, I think women quite like a man who will open a door for them, as they go to a restaurant or into a club or what have you. And I think that's terrific. And they're also, they're bright and they're keen. So are women.
Here is the most brutal question ever for you, Biggins. Do men make better hairdressers?
Yes.
And on that bombshell, Andrew, what's the best thing about men?
What's the best thing about men? Well, genuinely, they can be compassionate. They can make good husbands if they have the right person with them. And they are nice to be around, And we can be good role.
We're just losing the line there to young Andrew. He's not been cancelled, don't worry. Fascinating set of comments from Andrew, though. Michaela, you get the last word on this. What's great about men on International Men's Day? Keep it clean.
I think men are lovely. They're strong. They're rather some of them are very respectful. It's like both men and women. You get the best of both. Some are great, some are not so great. But on Men's Day, as we're celebrating, we should respect men for their strengths and their physical prowesses sometimes and their brilliant minds. There's so much that men are good at, and they, as you said, they're good leaders too, and they don't get enough positive press at all.
I know that the People's Hour is going to be a roaring success, and it's down to the likes of Andrew and Michaela. Thank you for kicking us off so brilliantly. Please come back on the show soon, and also well done to Neo for his first starring performance on the show. Andrew's gorgeous little doggy. I've got to say, my brilliant producer, James Gibson, put an extra question in, which is, why do men get a rough ride? I think you pay extra for that. Now, let's move on to our next part of the show. And after the break in the People's Hour, we've got another big topic to get to, and it's about the World Cup. It starts tomorrow in Qatar. Is it a tainted tournament? Will you be watching? See you shortly.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In and the People's Hour, in which for the first hour of the programme, I take your video calls. If you'd like to be a star on the show, then drop me a line, mark@gbnews.uk. And I'm delighted to say, helping me tackle the big topics of the day, are TV icon Christopher Biggins. Now, it's all kicking off tomorrow, but Qatar 2022 is a tainted World Cup. Or is it? That's my question to you tonight. Who knows what convinced FIFA to award the tournament to a Middle Eastern country with no football heritage? But I'm guessing brown envelopes were involved. Not to mention the workers' rights abuses by an oppressive regime that targets the LGBTQ+ community and subjugates women. Before a ball has even been kicked, many football fans are having to decide whether they can stomach watching it. So I'll be asking my viewers tonight, is the World Cup tainted? Let's talk to Adik in Kent, the Garden of England. Hi, Adik.
Good evening, Mark. Thank you for inviting me to your show again. I'm privileged to be here.
Great to have you back. Aren't you lucky living in Kent, which is home to the oldest brewery in the world, Shepherd Neame?
Haven't been there yet. Maybe now it's time to go.
I did a comedy gig for them once, and they did laugh because they were drunk. Obviously, it's a brewery. But they told me that they produce 100,000 pints of beer a week.
That's very impressive. Something to send to Qatar, I guess.
Oh, that's a good idea. I mean, you raise a good point there. Of course, Budweiser, or at least all beer, has been banned during the games, which is why I'm drinking Budweiser throughout the whole of tonight's show. But Adik, do you think this is a white elephant tournament? Will you be watching?
I personally will not be watching, but the bigger question is, should we participate in that from this tournament? The answer, it will be a complicated answer, but I'll start with the answer yes, because first of all, we need to think about our athletes, about footballers. That's what they do. It's expected from them, and we want to perform. So no doubt, they have to go and perform and win, of course. Otherwise, what's the purpose of the tournament? However, the bigger problem is we're going back to December the 2nd, 2010. The moment the Qatari tournament was awarded. And the question is why? You mentioned already the problems that we know. It's the treatment of migrant workers, LGBT community, how they treat, generally speaking, women's rights, human rights, and so on and so on. This is actually known, and it was known before. But the bigger question where I'm concerned is Qatar is being known, even before the tournament was awarded, all the connection in the Middle East with many terror organizations. Some of them pretty unpalatable, ISIS, Hamas, Al-Qaeda. Beside that, in the connection of minor organizations that intertwine between all these big organizations. And that problem has been known before the tournament was awarded to Qatar. You can actually read any article right now about all the connection, about the money laundering, about anything that you want. But my problem is, it was known before it was awarded. And that's my bigger problem. And that's the main reason it should not be awarded, because to a degree, it's a danger to our society, how it is managed.
Let's speak now to Amanda in East Sussex. Hi, Amanda. Looking forward to speaking to Amanda because that name rings a bell. We'll get her view, of course, a very nice part of the English coastline. Amanda, did you used to call into my radio show?
Yes, I did, Mark. Yes, that's me.
Well, it's wonderful to be reunited. We've both had an upgrade and we're on the box now. Great to have you back contributing. Look, Amanda, I'm supposed to do balance in everything we do here on GB News. But as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the World Cup in Qatar, the whole thing stinks, in my opinion. What's your view?
I agree. The thing is, I also don't like to think that people are mixing politics with sport. So I actually think that they should keep politics out of sport completely. That's just my opinion. And the reason I think that is because when you get into these debates about human rights and various things to do with sport, it can spoil it. It can take the fun away from just the game itself. And as much as we know that Qatar was not the best choice for this particular situation, they don't call it a World Cup for nothing, do they? I mean, it is to do with taking it around the world. And that's the way I look at it, because I prefer to keep politics out of sport. And I just think if we could do that with sport generally, life would be a lot happier and easier when it comes to these kind of situations. But I think what's happened since COVID, everything's got so political, and many people seem to enjoy virtue signalling, which I really don't agree with that. I think, you know, what's the point in virtue signalling about a country that perhaps you've never even travelled to? I mean, I've never been to Qatar, so I'm not an expert on Qatar itself. I wouldn't even choose to visit Qatar just from the fact that they don't treat women very well, for instance. But I don't want to judge a country when I've not even been there. And I like to try to be open-minded about everything, really. So I just think when it comes to sport, if you try to keep politics out of it, then it can make it a lot happier and more fun in general when it comes to watching the game. So, you know, I don't know. I just think it's a very complicated issue. And I really do think that everything now has just become so political since COVID. And I don't understand why. So for me, you know, I just wish they would not be so political about every single subject.
Well, I agree with you, Amanda. Everything has become so political since COVID, and I think it's because of lockdowns and the fact that people have spent 2.5 years glued to their phones, looking at apps like Twitter, which have algorithms which encourage people to stay in echo chambers and have only people that agree with them. And the way that Facebook, Instagram and Twitter work is to create tribes, which is very divisive. But Amanda, you raise an interesting point that if you take politics out of football, which I agree you should, then actually the venue doesn't matter. The World Cup is the World Cup. Just to develop your concern about politics in sport, what would the examples be that you think shouldn't happen? Taking the knee, rainbow shoelaces, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I really don't agree with that kind of virtue signalling. I find it really actually quite offensive. Because, you know, a lot of the people that are doing these things, such as taking the knee and whatever, they're not really invested in the particular cause that they're espousing, you know, that they have the need to show their virtue for. So I really just feel that a lot of it is very inauthentic. And if you're going to want to do something of make any difference to a particular cause, then, you know, go and do some charity work and actually do something that is actually really meaningful. I mean, just taking the knee, it doesn't really change anything. It's just virtue signalling. And I just find it offensive. I don't agree with it at all. That's it.
Amanda, you've raised some fascinating new angles here in relation to the World Cup in Qatar, arguing that it's the World Cup, therefore it should happen around the world, including Russia, including Qatar. Take the politics out of it. Biggins, what do you think about Amanda's comments there? TV, big screen and theatre legend Christopher Biggins is my sidekick for the night. Christopher, let me ask you your views on that. How do you respond to Amanda's comments?
Well, Amanda, you know, I think what you're saying is right, but I think, unfortunately, the situation is so bad in these countries. I mean, the way they treat homosexuals, the way they treat, that's men and women, the way they treat women, the way they treat the builders who've built this huge complex has been appalling. The number of deaths has been huge and kept very much under the radar. Now, I think that you're right. It would be a wonderful world if we could play sport anywhere and really enjoy it. But there are issues, and the issues are very important. I think the whole problem with this FIFA thing is it's a money-making organisation for a lot of people, and that is my problem. I mean, there's a lot of people going out there supporting it who are being paid millions and millions and millions, and we're forgetting that there are people dying, there are people being criticised for being gay. It's just awful. And I think that is the problem. If we could get rid of that, it would be marvellous.
Let's go back to Kent as well. And Adik, do stay there, everyone else. Biggins, do stay with us, and Amanda as well. But Adik, we're going to get a line to you because I'd love to know what you think. Yeah, do you want to pick up on what's been said, Adik?
Yes, absolutely. Whatever is being said is completely correct, as I mentioned. It's about the treatment of the migrants, how the treatment of the builders, the treatment of the human rights, and specifically, obviously, the alcohol issue, which is quite interesting. I want to raise something, is that I noticed that alcohol is not sold in the stadiums. But interesting point is they actually sold alcohol in the stadiums in the privilege box for people who pay at least £19,000 per session in the box. So there you can buy alcohol in the stadium. That's quite interesting point. So all about how no alcohol in the stadiums.
But why do they take Budweiser's money though? That's interesting, to sponsor it. That is extraordinary. But if I was if I was the CEO of Budweiser, I'd be furious, absolutely furious, having paid millions of pounds to promote my thing, and then they say, sorry, you can't have a drink. Well, that's madness.
About a drink, I would probably say all of it was known before the games were awarded to Qatar. So this should not be a surprise, but that's a different issue. But what is important, as crucial, is how treatment of homosexuality. What I'm bothered about is all the virtue signaling, how to go about that, all the lovely words, all the kind of wristbands they want to offer. Gary Lineker says, I wish somebody will come out at the games, but he does not do anything himself. It's lovely that somebody else will do, of course, wonderful. But yourself, you're something else. I'll take the money and go. The same thing with David Beckham. I admire his cue to the Queen. He probably thought it will be quite quiet in their criticism later on. Maybe not exactly. But what I want to say is that what we actually can do as a symbol in the games that actually may have an impact. And it's not just kind of wristband or just a slogan.
Yeah.
I want an impact for life. I want
agree.
to take this opportunity that it will remembered for ages, years and years again.
And that is the theme raised by Amanda as well, which is let's have proper charity work. Let's have a legacy from sport, but not finger wagging, not virtue signalling, and not optics. Listen, great to have a new friend on the show.
I want to mention, Mark. I want to just one optic that is important. I want, when the games are finished, the last game of the English group, the English group, I want to decide, and I want to see men kissing in front of the camera at the end of the game. It will send a massive message. And they can decide in advance who is will who, and I want to finish it this way. It cannot be better signal to the world.
Attic, if I could kiss you now, I would. Here we go. Mwah. Brilliant stuff. I would kiss Biggins, but I'm punching above my weight, not in his league. Wonderful to have a new friend in Attic and an old friend in the wonderful, all the way from East Sussex, Amanda. Amanda, great to see you again. Lots more to come in the People's Hour. Our next topic is an absolute corker, folks. Now, if you're enjoying being part of the show, drop me an email, mark at gbnews.uk, and you can be on the show as well. Next up, after this week's autumn statement, is a Labour government now inevitable? See you shortly.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say, I really hope you can join me noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In and the People's Hour, in which the first hour of the show is dedicated to your calls. If you'd like to be part of the show and a star on the programme, on a future programme, then drop me a line right now, mark@gbnews.uk. Look at these gorgeous viewers who have been so eloquent and so interesting in what they've had to say so far. Alongside my viewers, I'm delighted to have the brilliant actor, broadcaster and showbiz icon Christopher Biggins. Now, if one thing is for certain after this week's autumn statement, we're all going to get a bit poorer. Chancellor Jeremy Hunt acknowledged there were very difficult times ahead, but said his plans gave people certainty on how the government would help them through the recession. Labour said the Chancellor had picked the nation's pockets with stealth taxes. So here's the question for you tonight. Is a Labour government now inevitable? Has Downing Street been gifted to Keir Starmer by the autumn statement? Let's speak to Lars in Windsor. Hi, Lars.
Hi, Mark. Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well. How close are you to the castle?
About a mile.
Did you ever bump into the Queen?
I have seen her a few times, but not in the high street.
Just in Waitrose. Listen, Lars, it's great to have you on the programme from your log cabin. Or is it a sauna?
Sorry, yeah, it's a porter cabin in the bottom of the garden.
I tell you, I'm sure that was very useful during lockdown. Lars, what do you think? Has the mini budget gifted Labour the next election?
I don't think so. I think, a week's a long time in politics. 2 years is even longer. And if we go back to 1990, when John Major was having a problem, the lead, if you look at the polls, the lead to the Labour Party in 1919 around June was about 23 points. And of course, now we're about the Conservatives are about 22 points behind. So you've still got 2 years in which to improve that situation. So I think generally, I think they've still got a chance to bring that back. And I think under the current leadership with Rishi Sunak, I think the Conservatives got a better job of doing that than they had under the previous Prime Minister.
Well, that's interesting, Lars, because you're in sync with what Christopher Biggins told me at the beginning of the programme. We'll bring Biggins back in just a moment, but let's talk to Fergus in Greenwich as well. Hi, Fergus. Lovely to have you on the show.
I've been watching the show. I've been watching the show since it opened. I've been watching your channel all the time. Biggins is one of the best actors ever. Bless him. I used to be an actor. There's something about a fire. I always remember him from I, Claudius. Oh, my God.
I love that.
Well, listen,
so
Biggins is a legend, but you're a legend in the making, Fergus. I think you've emailed the show plenty of times, and I love getting your emails. The clock's against us, so my apologies to you and Lars. But get your point in, Fergus. Do you think that possibly there's still hope for the Tories? Have they got 2 years to get this right?
Well, the funny thing is, they've done Labour's stuff for them. It's so funny. I mean, who would you vote for? Labour or Conservative? They're both doing the same policies. And, of course, I was watching this morning with Angela and Daubney, which was brilliant, the whole show, because I keep watching your channel all the time. It drives me nuts. As you know, I'm always writing to you and complaining and saying how good it is. But what's the difference between what Labour can do and what the Conservatives are doing right now? There isn't any difference. They're doing Labour policy. So how can it be changed? I've got no idea. I'm a retired pensioner and I live off my pension and I'm careful. That's the thing. I'm very careful with my money, etc. And I think people should downsize, sell a big house, pass it on to the children, move into a flat like I'm in, wrap up warm, and watch GB News from your bed, which is what I do.
Amen to that. Look, Fergus and Lars, let's get the 6 box if you can, boys. Fergus and Lars, let me promise you a lot more airtime on the next People's Hour, because you've been rather squeezed at the end, but thank you for your contribution. My thanks to all of you, Andrew and Michaela, and, of course, let me not forget Amanda and Lars and Fergus, and, of course, the brilliant Biggins. Can I ask for a quick show of hands? Do you think a Labour government is now inevitable? Please raise your hands, People's Panel.
No.
Just Amanda. Amanda thinks it's inevitable, but the others have got good news for the Tories. Many thanks to my brilliant panel and to Biggins, who stars in Panto at the Darlington Hippodrome, Peter Pan, a natural, a star, and we look forward to welcoming him back very, very soon to the programme. Lots more to come. It's my big opinion next, and I've got good news for you. See you shortly.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales
and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky. That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg. And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Welcome to Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. In my big opinion, in just a few minutes' time, enough already with this negativity. Britain needs a dose of good news, and I've got plenty. In the big question, after Microsoft announced it required bosses to disclose consensual relationships with employees, should you sleep with your co-worker? Have you ever had nookie with a colleague? Mark at gbnews.uk. You can tell all. Plus, we'll get the views of the Queen of US showbiz royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield, on King Charles, who, by the way, it turns out, is very, very popular, a potential return to Twitter for Donald Trump, and Joe Biden at 80. Is he 80? I thought he wasn't a day over 60. He's so sprightly. And in the news agenda with my panel, is private medical insurance morally wrong? Should parents have a say in their children's partners? And is adultery now the norm? Has it become acceptable? Plus, tomorrow's Sunday papers live from 10:20. That's right, 10 minutes earlier than everyone else, right through until 11. And in my take at 10, my reaction to Meghan Markle's comments that being woke is just being nice. I won't be pulling my punches. And folks, let me tell you that Budweiser has been banned from the World Cup, but it's heavily encouraged here at GB News. Other beers are available. Perfect. It is Saturday night, so get something cold and fizzy in the fridge. And let's get the headlines with the very fizzy Bethany Elsey.
Thanks very much, Mark. Good evening. I am Bethany Elsey, here to bring you up to date from the GB Newsroom. The UK is boosting its support for Ukraine, pledging a £50 million package of air defence aid. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak confirmed the move during an unannounced visit to Kyiv earlier. He told President Volodymyr Zelensky the UK will continue to stand with the country as it fights to end Russia's barbarous war.
Your homes, your hospitals, your power stations are being destroyed by the air. So to help you defend yourselves, we are today providing new air defence support, including 120 anti-aircraft guns, radar and anti-drone equipment. We're extending our training for the Ukrainian armed forces to include specialist expertise from UK medics and engineers. And we are stepping up our support to help you through the cold, hard winter ahead.
Negotiators at COP27 are close to a breakthrough deal for a new fund to help developing countries cope with the impacts of climate change. The money would compensate 134 nations for damage caused by droughts, floods and wildfires. The summit in Egypt had to be extended after delegates failed to reach an agreement yesterday. A man being held at an immigration centre in Kent has died. The Home Office says he arrived in the UK after crossing the Channel in a small boat last week and that he took ill at the Manston Centre yesterday. The facility has come under increasing scrutiny for poor conditions and overcrowding. A post-mortem will take place to determine his cause of death. The chief executive of Rochdale Borough-wide Housing has been sacked. It's after a 2-year-old boy died following prolonged exposure to mould. An inquest heard how the parents of Awab Ishak had made numerous complaints to the council, but were simply told to paint over it. The council has said it was no longer tenable for Gareth Swarbrick to stay on. The government says the board still has questions to answer. And FIFA's president has defended the decision to host the World Cup in Qatar and tried to show empathy during a news conference.
Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled.
Gianni Infantino's comments follow heavy criticism of Doha's treatment of migrant workers and LGBTQ people. He says he's compassionate towards all groups. He also accused the West of hypocrisy.
I think for what we Europeans have been doing in the last 3,000 years around the world, we should be apologizing for the next 3,000 years before starting to give moral lessons.
You're watching GB News on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're up to date. Now let's get back to Mark.
My thanks to Bethany Elsey. Isn't it great to have her back? She returns in an hour's time. Welcome to Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. Shortly, in my big opinion, enough already with this negativity. Britain needs a dose of good news. And I've got plenty. In the big question, after Microsoft announces that it requires bosses to disclose consensual relationships with employees, is it wrong to sleep with your co-worker? Have you ever had nookie with a colleague? We'll also get the views of the Queen of US royal showbiz and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield, on good news for King Charles, who, it turns out, is proving very popular in the polls. Also, Donald Trump back on Twitter, could it happen? And Joe Biden at 80. And in the news agenda with my panel, is private medical insurance morally wrong? Have you got it? Do you feel bad about having it? Would you like to have it? Is it now essential? Should parents have a say in their children's partner? And is adultery now the norm? To debate all of that and many other big stories of the day, my all-star panel. Radio icon Dr. Neil Fox, model and health guru Angie Best, and political commentator and celebrity dad Stanley Johnson. Plus, tomorrow's papers live and uninterrupted. 10 minutes earlier than everyone else at 10:20, right through until 11. Very excited. We'll be going live to Fleet Street and the Sunday Express's political editor online, David Maddox. In my take at 10, my reaction to Meghan Markle's comment that being woke is just being nice. I won't be pulling my punches, and I probably won't be nice either. I want to hear from you throughout the show, mark@gbnews.uk. And this programme has a golden rule, especially for my Saturday Night In. Do you know what that rule is? Sebastian, are you ready? Camera 8, let's go. We don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it. I thought he was slow on camera 8, don't you? He was slow on it. It's because he went to the pub before he went on air. Disgraceful. So for the next 2 hours, big debates, big guests, and always big opinions. And it's my Saturday Night In, so get something cold and fizzy in the fridge, like Budweiser, which is banned in the World Cup, but encouraged on Mark Dolan tonight. Other beer brands are available: Heineken, Old Speckled Hen, you name your poison. Or, if you're a non-drinker, get the kettle on. Let's have a brew. What is it? One bag for the pot and one bag for every drinker. So there you go. Lots to get through. And drop me an email now, mark@gbnews.uk. It's time for my big opinion. It seems like we've become addicted to bad news. It's the crack cocaine eagerly distributed by click-hungry media outlets. We saw it during the Brexit referendum, when apparently the world was going to end if we left the bloc. We saw it when Donald Trump became president, because apparently he was going to destroy America rather than make it great again. And of course, the mainstream media's whipping up of fear and panic reached its nadir during the pandemic, with an almost pornographic obsession among the news channels with filming in COVID wards, giving the impression that it was the bubonic plague. Horrible virus though it is, and it's taken too many from us, The bubonic plague, it was not. But fear sells, and those publishers peddling COVID hysteria couldn't care less about the consequences, including the, in my view, disastrous and expensive mistake of lockdowns, for which they, in the media, aggressively lobbied. Which is why I read with a mixture of amusement and dismay at the latest headlines this week about the economy and how Britain will be in a doom loop of economic hell until, wait for it, 2050. That's what they're saying. We've got big problems until 2050. Who the hell can possibly know where we will be in a quarter of a century's time? If you look at pathetic COVID modelling or similarly inaccurate financial projections, including the Bank of England's recent underestimating of inflation, we can barely predict what's going to happen next week, let alone in 2050. But why does it make a headline? Because it gets a reaction. Because it's bad news, which has become a golden commodity. And because it ties in with a wider attempt by so many of my journalistic colleagues to cast Britain in a negative light. Britain bashing has become a national pastime, shamefully indulged in by privileged media commentators who are entitled to characterise the country in a critical and analytical way. But too many write and speak about this country in a way that demonstrates they hate it. Well, I don't. I love Britain. And for all of our many challenges, including an undoubted economic crisis, self-inflicted, of course, let's not go there, it's my view that the future is a lot brighter than many of these so-called expert commentators. In fact, even the immediate future for this country is already positive. Inflation has likely peaked, which means mortgage interest rates won't head far north of where they currently are and could even come down in the next couple of years. The cost of energy is tumbling as nations seek alternatives to Vladimir Putin's supply of oil and gas, and the cost of government borrowing has dropped too. We also have low unemployment and Brexit, which, notwithstanding the near-term economic impacts of such a transition, provides Britain with the potential for more trade deals and a nimble, competitive set of economic policies, which can make this country once again a haven for global investment. Plus, we're saving £24 billion a year in annual payments to Brussels. And I know Sunak and Hunt may have scared the horses with their terrifying tax hikes, which I believe to be an overcorrection following the ill-fated mini-budget. But don't panic, Captain Mannering. Sunak is a money man and he will get those taxes down sooner rather than later. He's flanked by Jeremy Hunt, who I disagree with over COVID, but who is a canny and experienced political operator. They're not the most promising double act right now, but knowing they've got 2 years until the next election, they're getting the pain out of the way now. Small green shoots will be appearing a good few months ahead of the next poll. And at that point, the choice between Starmer and Sunak will be far closer than it is today. There are going to be tough times ahead, and then some, but we're going to be OK. We need some positive energy. You won't get it anywhere else, but I'm going to be giving plenty of you positive energy in abundance. Because the fundamentals of the British economy and British society are sound. We are the 5th biggest economy in the world, with a national debt smaller than that of the United States, France and Japan. We are a dynamic and diverse population. We can move fast, we can reinvent, we can adapt. And we will, because we always have done. Historically, Britain has made a habit of surprising the world, and we will do it all over again. And we've been through far, far worse. For example, when German bombs rained over London in the 1940s. Our best days aren't behind us, folks. They lie ahead. Ignore the gloomy headlines, because overall, it's good news for Britain. There is sunshine amid those grey clouds. We've got our problems, but Britain is a great country with a very, very strong economy, a great workforce, and my glass is stubbornly half full. But what do you think? Mark at gbnews.uk. I'll get to your emails shortly, but reacting to my big opinion monologue and the big stories of the day, we have radio and TV star Neil Dr. Fox, model and health guru Angie Best, and political commentator and writer Stanley Johnson. Let me start with you, Neil. Do you think that the media have become addicted to negative headlines?
Oh, my goodness, yes. I was nodding all the way through your monologue. I have to say, I'm definitely a cup half full man as well, not half empty. There are problems, clearly. We have problems, whether it be, you know, the energy problems, the cost of living. Well, we can list them. They've been listed endlessly. But you have to have some optimism. If we just have negativity all the time, and you're absolutely right that sadly, bad news. Listen to any journalist talking, or normal, not every journalist, not yourself, clearly, or at GB News, but most people do tend to think that bad news sells, and that's a really sad indication of where we are. I don't know why we seem to be addicted to bad news, but people think that's what we want to hear. I don't want to hear it. I want to hear the real news. But I also want to hear good news when there needs to be good news, but we never get fed good news. We just get doom and gloom 24/7, it seems. And, of course, after a time, it becomes a bit of a spirals lower and lower and lower, and it does wear us down, and it gets you irritated. And if you're not a glass half full person, I think you can probably easily believe that everything is pretty much at an end and we are about to self-destruct. But as you so rightly said, we haven't. We fight back. We're a resilient people. We want to do well. I think deep down, human beings are optimistic and positive. And yeah, I think our best times do lie ahead. Yes, we've got to go through some trouble and we're going to have to work our way out of it. And it won't be all rosy for the next couple of years. But I believe, yeah, we are going to get out of it. Of course we will at one time. We always do. And I think our best times do lie ahead. And I wish that we had more optimistic news. We need more good news. We do.
Well, yeah, and I would never mislead my viewers and listeners, Neil, just as you wouldn't. Of course, you're on the radio every day. I'm authentic, I'm honest. I say it like it is. If we're in trouble, we're in trouble. We've got problems. This is not kind of just, you know, some sort of ridiculous blind optimism. There are lots and lots of positive things about this country going forward. Angie Best, it strikes me that talking the country down has become a national pastime, and the media, or some therein, are its worst culprits.
It's really sad, isn't it? Because the rest of the world thinks of us as a very negative country. They do.
Yeah.
America, and I hate to use America because it's a sad place right now, the whole world is a sad place. We're in a very strange time.
Is that why 200,000 people are coming in every year to live in this country?
Yeah, because every country's in a mess, but they think it's better to come here because we give them a hotel.
Well, I think they must take a pretty optimistic view of their future in Britain.
Who?
The 200,000 people who are coming every year in small boats across the channel.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, they do. Absolutely.
Well,
of course they do.
So
well, Stanley, you're absolutely right about that. The bottom line is that we talk the country down too much, and I think the media are guilty of this. You know, we've got some of the best publications in the world, some of the best journalists, but it just seems to be a habit now that we view Britain from a negative perspective, but we're still punching massively above our weight globally.
It's a lot to do. Breakfast television used to be a lovely thing to put on in the morning. Yeah. I can't watch it anymore. I go and find Judge Judy because I can't listen to Suzanne and all the others being so negative and making everything sound so terribly bad.
Yeah. You know, this takes me all back to the 60s. I remember the 60s terribly well, and the Tories line was we accused the Labour Party of being nattering nabobs of negativity. Do you remember that? That was our slogan. Well, and here I hear people are saying that we're all being negative. I don't know what this negative business is. I saw some stuff in Mark's comments, which I absolutely recognise. You said, for example, the self-inflicted wound, but let's not go there. Well, I would say, Mark, that if we're one thing which is jolly important now, and that is to actually make sure we don't make that wound deeper. And we're talking about, of course, I'm talking about the relationship we have now with the EU. The economic impact has been severe, but we can deal with it. And I was so encouraged this week to see Jeremy Hunt in his statement say, actually, we've got to rebuild these bridges with Europe. Not, of course, in the sense we're going to get rid of Brexit, absolutely not, but rebuild the bridges. And I would say, Jeremy Hunt, if you're listening, which you probably aren't, above all, get Rees-Mogg under control and, for heaven's sake, block that silly bill he put forward to scrap 4,000 EU-derived UK laws, which, if one thing is sure, is going to make our life, in terms of our trading relationships, tremendously difficult if he goes ahead with that.
See, it's nice for you to say all that, Stanley, but it would make us ordinary people understand and make it so much easier for us if people were to tell us the truth. You never know who to believe. You never know who's telling you the truth about anything, be it Europe, this country, government, or anything. So you know it all because you're in the business, or used to be. But we aren't, and we never know who to believe.
Well, I agree with you, Angie. I think the answer is a diverse media. And I think Fleet Street works really well because you've got The Guardian and The Mirror on the left, The Independent as well. And then on the right, you've got The Telegraph, The Mail, The Sun. And if you read all the papers, you get a balanced view. And I think that's what we're trying to do at GB News, is to widen the national conversation about all of these issues. And my answer to you, Angie, is that then the public, who are incredibly clever and have huge amounts of life experience, can make their own minds up. And that, I think, is how free speech and democracy work. Well, I think you'll agree we're travelling business class with my panel tonight. Broadcasting legend Neil Fox, model and health guru Angie Best, and highly respected political commentator Stanley Johnson. They're back shortly with more burning issues of the day. But next, in the big question, after Microsoft tells their bosses to disclose relationships with employees, is it wrong to sleep with your co-worker? Get the kettle on. See you shortly.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
It's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In, and every Saturday I encourage you to put a bottle of something fizzy in the fridge or get the kettle on. Well, David's not happy. Mark Oldbean, Shepherd Neame should never be refrigerated. Room temperature for 1698, Bishop's Finger and Whitstable Bay ales, to name but three. Excellent work. And you're making me thirsty just thinking about it, David. In response to my big opinion, the emails are pouring in thick and fast. mark@gbnews.uk. Jane says, Mark, I appreciated your big opinion tonight. Like you, I love Britain, and I'm sick of the constant trashing of our amazing country from the left-wing media. John says, brilliant appraisal, Mark. Too many negative Normas and Normans around today who believe everything that comes from the mainstream media's mouth is the truth. And we've done that one, a brilliant appraisal. John says, Mark, please stop reporting the dogma that low interest rates are an indicator of a healthy economy. There is a good argument that higher interest rates are actually a good discipline for governments addicted to cheap borrowing. And last but not least, Richie, who says, Mark, I normally agree with your big opinion, but not this one. What planet have you been on this year? Illegal immigration out of hand, energy crisis, possible power cuts, soaring food prices, and a government who are pissing our money away to fund and extend a far-off war. Richie, thank you for balancing the views of my big opinion. This is about all opinions. It's a broad church here on Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. Keep those opinions coming. It's time now for this. Yes, it's time for the big question in which we tackle a major news story of the day. Tonight, as Microsoft tell their bosses to disclose information about consensual relationships in the workplace, I'm asking, is it wrong to sleep with a co-worker? Have you ever had nookie with a colleague? Is it a good place to meet people, or does it cross a professional line? Joining me to debate this is leading dating and attraction expert for men, Kezia Noble, and the brilliant broadcaster and media commentator, Paula London. Paula, wonderful to have you on the show. It's your debut on Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. What's your view? Is it wrong to sleep with your colleagues?
Yes, it is. Call me old-fashioned, but I think you should go to work, you not be flirting over the water cooler. And predominantly, you go to work to earn money. Some people are very lucky. They receive intrinsic job satisfaction from their role, but you should be at work to work. There's plenty of time for having your shenanigans after work. You don't need to be flirting with people. And flirting, there's a very fine line between flirting and sexually harassing someone at work. So, yeah.
However,
don't date your co-workers.
Paula, wouldn't you say, though, that work is a great place to meet a potential long-term partner? Because when you work alongside somebody, you get to know them really well.
Well, it depends. I think it's very important, depending on the age group, like Generation Z. A lot of those people are very, very woke, and they're looking to find fault with their bosses as well. You know, so many people are now taking their employers to tribunals. It doesn't cost an employer a penny to do that. And 2 out of 3 of these cases are won. So, yeah, it can be like compelling stories, hearing about someone hooking up at lunchtime, but it's a nightmare for the employer. And employers have a lot on their plate at the moment. People are trying to find things to be offended by. They don't want to work. They want to be playing ping pong in the daytime. They want to hook up at lunchtime. When is the work getting done?
But Kezia Noble, nothing beats an office romance.
Exactly. Office romances are super fun, and so many of them lead to long-term relationships. I've had office romances, and I don't regret any of them. And nor did my employer at the time. You know, there's a lot, you know, it's a great way to meet somebody because you're with them for 5 days a week. You get to see many aspects of their personality. So you have a clearer idea of who they are. You can make a better judgment. Whereas if you meet someone in a nightclub or a bar and you're a little bit drunk, you know, you can't make such an accurate judgment on the person. And, you know, anything is better than meeting someone via a dating app. So I do see your point that it can cause a headache for employers. I do see that. But I do believe that we are adults. We can't be micromanaged. We're not children. You know, this is how people meet each other. If they can't meet in the office, where is there left? Nightclubs and bars where people are drunk, or dating apps. It's not suitable for everyone.
Paula London.
Hi.
You were just responding there, and you were quite animated in your reaction to what Kezia had to say.
Yeah, because I feel like this is another thing that hasn't been brought up. With Microsoft, they don't want everyone to tell HR if they're dating. It's only if a boss is dating a subordinate. So why is it that rule and then not for everyone if they have to go to HR? And I feel if you're dating, say I'm an assistant, say I was 20 and I was an assistant working in the bank and my boss was hitting on me and I thought he genuinely liked me, if I hooked up with him, he could get bored and then I could get fired. So, you know, a lot of people take advantage of employees when they're hooking up with them. I myself worked at a PR company in my early 20s, and I remember an intern hooked up with the office Lothario. She used to go out for lunch, come back disheveled. I mean, I had to tell her one time she had her dress in her underwear. About a month later, he got bored of her and she left. So things like this aren't funny. You know, it's people's lives, and they, you know, sometimes people feel like they, you know, a guy could pretend they really like someone and they didn't. And what I believe, you know, when you join a big company, especially a blue chip company, you have a handbook for employees. So some companies don't mind if they're maybe a small family-owned company, but some big companies, especially American-owned, do mind about this. And I feel that some men won't want to sign because they're married. They've probably got a woman at home and then they want a woman in the office. They want their cake and eat it.
Kezia, we've all been in teams where there are two people sort of secretly having a relationship. And I don't think it's great for office politics or even team morale. There's that old saying, don't screw the crew, especially if the relationship comes to a nasty end and you've still got to work with these people.
That's life. That is life, okay? Romance is complicated. Let's be positive here, okay? So many people that I know have had really fulfilling relationships from, you know, dating co-workers. So if you stop that, if you completely draw the line and say, no romance in the office, where is there left to meet people? You know, we're running out of places here. You know, you can't talk to a woman in the street, you can't talk to a woman here. I mean, I think that actually meeting somebody in the office, you get a much more clearer understanding of who they are. You can actually make a better judgment. And it's a slow burner. Remember, office romances are slow burners. And that's a good thing. That's what leads to relationships. And I have had office romances, and I don't regret any of them. They're okay. Sometimes they don't work out, but hey, some relationships don't work out anyhow, whether they're in an office.
It's not fair on the other employees.
Well, no, hold on. There's two people that seem. There's two people that seem to not like office romances. The first are people who are settled down, they've got a nice little family, and they can sit there and they can say, and wag their finger, and they forget how hard it is for single people to meet these days, how hard it is to navigate the dating world. And the second people who don't like it are the ones who have never experienced an office romance. They feel left out.
Briefly,
Paula.
Paula.
I worked in office. I just didn't want to do it.
Well, I did, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to. You don't have a big badge that says, don't shut me up, and then we're all good.
There is one problem, Kezia, before we go, with the clock against us, which is that when a work relationship comes to an end, very often one of the two have to leave the company. That's not great, is it?
Yeah.
No, of course it's not. I don't believe that somebody should be... Are you saying that someone has to be fired because it's an end of a relationship?
Someone's upset.
With that at all.
Paula London, someone's upset. Normally one of the parties leaves the business in disgrace and in tears.
That's a fact, yeah.
No,
there you go. Well, listen, let me tell you that if anything kicks off between myself and Nigel Farage, we'll both be very professional. It won't affect the end product. And if it doesn't work out, we'll still be close friends. Thank you to the brilliant Kezia Noble. What a great debate. Kezia, do come back and see us soon. And a very, very excellent maiden appearance from Paula London, broadcaster and media commentator. Thank you to both of you. What do you think? Is it wrong to be intimate with a colleague at work? Is it unprofessional, or is it the path to love? Mark at gbnews.uk. Are you married to or going out with someone from work? Let me know. Coming up, we've got the papers at 10:20 with full panel reaction. That's 10 minutes earlier than everyone else. We'll go live to Fleet Street as well. And the Daily Express's David Maddox for tomorrow's papers. But next, is private medical insurance morally wrong? We'll discuss that in 3. See you shortly.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky. That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg. And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking. My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. Now, the Prime Minister is in some hot water after refusing to say whether he has private medical insurance. Rishi Sunak, who, combined with his wife, is worth about 700 million quid, said that revealing that would be inappropriate. But it begs the question, is having private medical care anything to be ashamed of? Is it wrong morally? Or is he helping to ease the burden on the NHS? Let's debate that now with my brilliant panel, Stanley Johnson, Neil Fox, and the wonderful and one and only Angie Best. Let me start with you, if I can, Stanley. Is having private medical insurance morally or ethically wrong?
Absolutely not. I've lived in Europe. I've lived in the United States. I've lived in countries where, as it were, private health insurance or systems of care, which are funded by various means, but not necessarily by the state, work tremendously well. So I would absolutely agree with your proposal in your speech that actually he is limiting the burden on the state by having his own policies of private insurance and so on and so forth. And as a matter of fact, I think if you were to say the state will now carry the burden of what people, spend in private insurance, you probably find the state couldn't possibly do it. We've already reached pretty much a maximum, I would have thought, of the amount of money, something like 50% of public spending, whatever it is, which goes to health and social care. I very much doubted they could afford to take the extra hit of letting all the private people go public.
Indeed, those who have private medical insurance are effectively paying twice, aren't they? They're paying through their taxes for the NHS, which they don't use, and they're paying for private medical insurance.
And happy to do so. I can tell you, I'm absolutely sure that they would not, for one moment, resent the fact they're paying twice. Sure of that.
Another point worth remembering, Stanley, is, and we saw it during the pandemic, the private medical sector can be very supportive of and helpful to the NHS. Because lots of private medical hospitals took COVID patients and they did other non-COVID related treatment like x-rays for cancer, which the NHS wouldn't have been able to do.
I agree with that. Now, the truth of the matter is, I think if something totally major, the private sector is not necessarily well equipped to do something totally major. Like if all your organs failed, massively and comprehensively, it might be a good idea, to ring 999.
Of course. And that's what we all want, isn't it, Angie, which is for the NHS to be available to all, free at the point of need. But what's your view about those who have private medical insurance? Clearly, the Prime Minister's ashamed of it because he won't admit whether he's got it. And let's be honest, he probably has.
Of course he does. For me, it's freedom gives people a choice. So I like to think we live in a country, well, we don't, but we like to think we do. So it's a choice if you can afford it, if you're responsible enough. And for me, health is your only wealth. So if you want to be your best and, God forbid, anything goes wrong, you want the best people to look after you. So, of course, anybody should and go for it. I have it.
Yes, and why do you have it? Why do you pay for it? Because many would argue that the NHS is outstanding.
Well, is this all about the privatisation of the NHS? What? I don't understand.
Do you not think it's something of a social taboo to have private medical insurance? Because I would suggest, certainly in the sort of among the North London chattering classes, it would be a source of shame. A bit like sending your kids to private school. You've got to feel bad for having it.
But they all do. But they would send their kids to private school.
What is that tie you're wearing, Mark? Is that the old boy's tie?
Well, I wish it was. I did go to UCS, but no, this is not. This is Soprano, which is a cheap internet brand. But I'll be honest with you, it's machine washable, a bit like the suit, and it does the job. It's not the lovely silk like yours.
I don't know what this one is at all.
Stanley,
anyway.
that's premium. But what do you think about this?
Well, I think to say, is it morally wrong? Clearly, it's not morally wrong. You can spend your money how you like. Now, we're very lucky in this country that we have something called the NHS, because many countries would dream of having it. Look, look at America. It has nothing like it. They have no system like we do, and we're the envy of the world in many respects. It clearly has its faults. It feels like it's sort of running out of money. It's got an awful lot of red tape. It needs a lot of improvements, but it's brilliant. OK, it's brilliant and it's free. But if you want to spend your money elsewhere, if you want to go on a flash holiday, have a flash car, have a flash suit, whatever you want. If you've earned it, you can spend it how you like.
A bit like private school, wouldn't it be better if we were all on the NHS? Because then it would improve.
Well, I think part of the problem would be
because then all those posh, bossy people who are very keen on customer service would insist that standards went up.
Well, I just think
billionaires within the NHS having their back operations, they would kick a stink if they didn't get.
What is the figure? Because they don't know how to manage the NHS now. So imagine if everybody was on it, it would be even more badly managed. What happened to the 24 billion that we got back from Brexit, and that was supposed to go into the NHS? Where did that go? It didn't go into the NHS, did it?
And what are the numbers? I have no idea what the numbers are of people in this country that have private medical insurance.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I have no idea. I mean, whatever that number is,
it's about 10%, which is a higher figure than people realise.
That's a significant amount. Imagine if there was no private and all those people were now having to take the NHS. I mean, it does. You're quite right. You pay twice. I have private medical insurance and and it costs a lot of money, but it's a choice I have, and I'm lucky to be able to make that choice. I know I am. But so the money that comes out of my tax that would go to the NHS still goes to the NHS, like it does for private education. And if or state education, you still pay. And that's a choice. We have choices. We do technically live in a free country.
Yeah, but that choice is when you need something really, really tricky.
Yep.
you go to the NHS.
That's
Well,
true.
you're so right. And when you have a baby, you go to the NHS because often these private hospitals don't have an emergency theatre if there's any problem with the delivery. So arguably, it's safer to have a baby in the NHS.
I couldn't agree with you.
Briefly, Stanley, you've been a keen observer of politics for many decades. Rishi Sunak, I think, has got off to a solid start. Not everyone likes him, but I think he's been very professional so far, very coherent, very clear in his messaging. Were you surprised that he didn't answer the question about whether he's got Bupa or an equivalent product? Because when Margaret Thatcher was asked, she said, yes, I've got private medical insurance and I feel no shame in paying for it.
I think politicians have a right to keep some things to themselves. The follow-up question would be, well, are you ready to see your medical records? I think I'm all for a man refusing to answer questions if he has to.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it's rather sort of trivial gotcha politics.
It does make you wonder how much trust they have in the NHS if they want private medicine.
It's true. It's not a great vote of confidence, is it? There you go. Another truth bomb from Angie Best. She's dropped it. She does it every time she comes on. What a brilliant panel. Neil Fox, Angie Best and Stanley Johnson are back very shortly. But next up, we're live in LA to catch up with the Queen of US royal political and showbiz reporting, Kinsey Schofield, talking King Charles, Donald Trump and Joe Biden at 80. See you shortly.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio.
And online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Is it wrong to sleep with a colleague in the workplace? That was tonight's big question. A big reaction on email, mark@gbnews.uk. Louise says, when office affairs break up, it's always the female who leaves the job, and usually in tears. Some work out, and I know of 2 office romances that ended in marriage, one at the cost of another marriage with young children. It's not a good idea, particularly when one party is already married. Also, we've got, on the same subject, Patricia with this. Mark, I had an office romance many years ago and we married, but I did leave the company to have our daughter. We were together for 33 years until, sadly, my husband died, and now I miss him every single day. Well, Patricia, my heart goes out to you, and I'm sure that he was and is a very lucky guy to have had you in his life. But God bless you, and thanks for your email, Patricia. And last but not least, Alan, on private medical insurance. Is it wrong to have Bupa or another private medical provider? Alan says, Mark, if you decide to spend money on this to protect yourself and family rather than on tattoos, beer and cigarettes, what the hell has it got to do with someone else? Non-story, says Alan, who's not having any of it. But it's time now for US News with the queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kinsey.
Mark, this is the People's Channel, and the people want to know if Stanley Johnson is ticklish, okay? He is so precious, sitting there on your couch. I just want to pinch his cheeks.
Yes, listen, I know I'll probably get cancelled for this, but please could I ask Angie to try tickling... Can we get a little wide shot of the sofa, please, Sebastian? And we're just gonna do this right now. Angie, you have my permission to physically harass Stanley Johnson with a tickle.
No, thank you. As pleasant and wonderful as I'm sure it would be, I'll have to decline.
Don't tickle your co-worker.
No.
Yeah, is that allowed, Mark?
All right. Well, what we'll do, Kinsey, we'll wait till you're back in the UK, and you can have a go on Stanley to your heart's content.
I can't wait.
I look forward to it.
Now, Kinsey, can we talk about King Charles? I'm still getting used to the title. My feeling is that he's got off to an excellent start, and the polls would bear that out.
Absolutely. One of the most recent polls saying that 63% think that he's going to make an amazing king, an amazing monarch. And, you know, I have to stress, you've been covering it here over the last few months on GB News. Politically, the UK can be chaotic sometimes, and King Charles has been such a rock throughout that process. He's been, you know, the stability that the country needs, and I think that, you know, in the United States, we look at something like that and we envy it, especially after the midterms. We're all looking at each other going, what happened? And, you know, you have this bit of stability that the United States doesn't have.
Hooray for King Charles. Meanwhile, the king of the tech world, Elon Musk, has started a poll on Twitter asking everyone on Twitter whether or not he should put Donald Trump, back on the microblogging site. Tell me how that poll is going.
Well, it was pretty split the last time I looked. I'd have to do a quick check again, but he brought back Kathy Griffin. I don't know if you realize that. Now, she was suspended after she pretended to be Elon Musk and was kind of nasty about him. And he also brought back the Babylon Bee, which was Tucker Carlson's satire political outlet. And then he also brought back Jordan Peterson, which some people were fired up about. Let's see if where the poll is at now. It's 52 to 48%, with 52% saying yes, bring back Trump. I think it's going to cause a lot of controversy if he does this, Mark. You're seeing celebrities, you know, delete their accounts in droves, and I'm not so sure that you wouldn't see even more reject the platform if he does in fact do this.
However, it would be good news for free speech if Trump was back on the app. Would it make or break Twitter if he did return?
You know, I think that it's just in such a unique limbo right now, Mark. CBS News out here in the States, one of the largest media outlets, has actually decided that they're no longer they don't want any of their outlets, even the smaller local stations. They don't want any of them utilizing Twitter. Now, if people continue to follow suit, or if other stations continue to follow suit, that could really ding the outlet. That could really ding Twitter. So we'll see what what happens, I'm just kind of sitting back and waiting. I don't know what direction it's going to go. I'm in it for the long haul, but I'm just sitting back and waiting to see what happens because I'm nervous.
Well, I'm no Donald Trump cheerleader, but I am a free speech absolutist. And given the fact that the Russian government and the Taliban are on Twitter, I think the orange one deserves his place. Tell me about Elizabeth Holmes and why she's gone to jail for 11 years, Kinsey.
Now, I know you've seen this story, Mark. Theranos. It's not only, there's been a million documentaries made about it and a scripted series, which was on Hulu. This is the woman that pretended to create a system where all you needed was one drop of blood, and it would let you know if you had, if you had cancer, or it would just give you a million different pieces of information about your body through this one drop of blood. Now, did this machine ever exist? No, but she went and got huge pharmaceutical companies and all of these bigwig San Francisco people to donate to her pursuits, and she was sentenced to 11 years in jail for this. This is the craziest story, and it seems like we reward these schemers a lot these days, and this is kind of one of the first times in recent history that we've seen somebody actually have to go to jail and get a slap on the hand.
Indeed. I tell you something, Bernard Madoff, eat your heart out. I think even Rupert Murdoch, the media magnate, handed over about £120 million to this ill-fated and illusory project. Just a couple of seconds to go. Happy birthday, Mr. President.
That's right. Tomorrow he turns 80 years old. He's going to be the oldest president ever. And funny scenario, the White House, their strategy behind this big birthday is that they don't want to acknowledge it at all because they say that the Republicans use his age against him. So it's going to be a very low-key birthday. We're probably not going to see or hear a lot about it because the White House is trying to actually avoid conversation about his age at this point in time, especially with him saying he's considering running again for president.
I can't imagine why they're worried. Kinsey, a brilliant debrief. Do check out Kinsey's amazing royal website, To Die For Daily, and we will see the queen of all US media in a week's time, the brilliant Kinsey Schofield. Lots more to come in the next hour. In my take at 10, I'll be dealing with Meghan Markle. And let me tell you, I'm not pulling my punches. See you in 3.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
It's 10 o'clock. Welcome to Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. In my take at 10 in just a moment, Meghan Markle says being woke is the way to go. Well, I'll be dissecting that, and I'm not pulling my punches. In the news agenda with my brilliant panel, should parents have a say in their children's choice of partner? And has adultery become the norm? Is it okay now? Plus tomorrow's Sunday papers at 10:20. That's 10 minutes before everyone else, right through until 11 with full panel reaction. Meghan Markle next, but first, the distinctly regal Bethany Elsey.
Thanks, Mark. I am Bethany Elsey, here to bring you up to date from the GB Newsroom. The UK is boosting its support for Ukraine, pledging a £50 million package of air defence aid. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak confirmed the move during an unannounced visit to Kyiv. He told President Volodymyr Zelensky the UK will continue to stand with the country as it fights to end Russia's barbarous war.
Your homes, your hospitals, your power stations are being destroyed by the air. So to help you defend yourselves, we are today providing new air defence support, including 120 anti-aircraft guns, radar and anti-drone equipment. We're extending our training for the Ukrainian armed forces to include specialist expertise from UK medics and engineers. And we are stepping up our support to help you through the cold, hard winter ahead.
Negotiators at COP27 are close to a breakthrough deal for a new fund to help developing countries cope with the impacts of climate change. The money would compensate 134 nations for damage caused by droughts, floods and wildfires. The summit in Egypt had to be extended after delegates failed to reach an agreement yesterday. The chief executive of Rochdale Borough-wide Housing has been sacked after a 2-year-old boy died following prolonged exposure to mould. An inquest heard how the parents of Awab Ishaq had made numerous complaints to the council, but were simply told to paint over it. The council has said it was no longer tenable for Gareth Swarbrick to stay on. The government says the board still has questions to answer. A man being held at an immigration centre in Kent has died. The Home Office says he arrived in the UK after crossing the Channel in a small boat last week and that he took ill at the Manston Centre yesterday. The facility has come under increasing scrutiny for poor conditions and overcrowding in recent weeks. A post-mortem will take place to determine his cause of death. FIFA's president has defended the decision to host the World Cup in Qatar, and he also took aim at European critics in an hour-long monologue.
Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled.
Gianni Infantino's comments reference the discrimination his family faced as Italian migrants in Switzerland. It follows heavy criticism of Doha's treatment of migrant workers and LGBTQ people. He says he's compassionate towards all groups and has accused the West of hypocrisy.
I think for what we Europeans have been doing in the last 3,000 years around the world, we should be apologizing for the next 3,000 years. before starting to give moral lessons.
You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now let's get back to Mark.
Welcome to Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In. In my take at 10 in just a moment, Meghan Markle believes the word woke is cool. My reaction, and I'm not pulling my punches. In the news agenda with my panel, should parents have a say in their partners and the choice that their partners make in terms of who your kid goes out with? And is adultery now the norm? Now, look, we'll get to all of that. We'll debate everything tonight with my all-star panel of legendary broadcaster Neil Dr. Fox. We also have model and health guru Angie Best and political commentator and former MEP and writer Stanley Johnson. Plus, tomorrow's Sunday papers from 10:20 right through until 11. I want to hear from you throughout the programme. Mark at gbnews.uk. Lots to get through, but first, my take at 10. Meghan Markle has defended the word woke, which to many is shorthand for extreme political correctness. Speaking on her popular podcast, she said woke, by definition, means alert to injustice in society, especially racism. Now, what's loaded or wrong with that? Well, let me tell you what's loaded or wrong with that, Meghan. Almost anyone in their right mind is alert to injustice in society, especially racism. In that sense, we're all woke, dear. The reality is that how we now understand the term woke is the very opposite of being caring and empathetic and a good person. So, Meghan, let me give you a handy guide to what being woke actually means. Woke is drag acts performing in school classrooms. Woke is banning books, music and art. Woke is putting a trigger warning at the start of George Orwell's 1984, rewriting Shakespeare and cancelling an episode of Fawlty Towers, which ironically contained a strong and rather clever and subtle anti-racist message. Woke is protecting students from different viewpoints with which they may disagree, and the ostracisation, demonisation and sacking of anyone who challenges the woke narrative. Woke is the prioritising of your feelings over the facts, the prioritising of what you call yourself over science. Woke is far from anti-racist. In fact, it's the opposite, given its obsession with skin colour and the demonisation of those with the wrong kind. Woke is the dilution and erasing of women and the removal of their hard-earned rights and safety provisions. Woke says a lesbian is a bigot if she doesn't take the erect penis of a trans woman. Woke is a woodwork teacher, identifying as female but male biologically, rocking the full meat and two veg, parading around the science block with massive prosthetic boobs. Dolly Parton, eat your heart out. Does she work 9 to 5? Woke is biological men smashing women in sporting events, breaking records and crushing their dreams of a trophy. Woke is a fat bloke in a dress winning a beauty pageant. Woke is calling women people who have periods and postnatal women chest feeders rather than breastfeeders. Woke is biological male sex offenders, rapists even, accommodated in women's prisons. Woke is toddlers choosing their pronouns at nursery school. It's teenagers receiving medication to stop puberty without parental consent. It's young girls being sent chest-flattening devices or even being given double mastectomies and being mutilated at the hands of a woke and profiteering surgeon. Woke is authoritarian, totalitarian, intolerant, illiberal, cruel, mad and wrong. It's bullying, it's anti-democratic, and it is diametrically opposed to Western values. I'm no Donald Trump cheerleader, but he had his moments. And here he got it right. Take a listen.
You know what woke means? It means you're a loser. Everything woke. Everything woke. It's true. Everything woke turns to shit, okay? It's true. It's true. Look at what's happening.
So I hope that clears up what woke is, Meghan. Far from being something to be proud of, woke is a colossal negative force in modern society, which I believe threatens to bring down the West if we're not careful. We are at war with woke, and it's a war we've got to win. Woke isn't a good word, it's a 4-letter word. And as far as I'm concerned, woke can F off. What's your view? Mark at gbnews.uk. I'll get to your emails shortly, but reacting to my take at 10 and tomorrow's papers at 20 past 10 are my brilliant panel of broadcasting and TV multimedia icon Neil Fox, model and health guru Angie Best, and political commentator and former MEP and writer Stanley Johnson. Let me start with you, Neil. What's your reaction to Meghan Markle's defence of the word woke? She says, I'm woke and I'm proud.
Well, the definition, I looked it up before I came on tonight. Woke is exactly as she said. It's an awakening to these social issues and especially racism. And as you quite rightly said, I think anyone in their right minds would be officially woke because we would also want that. But it's just got crazily out of hand. And the list you gave, I know they were extreme versions of it, but they're all real versions. And they're scary because they're crazy and they make no sense. You know, when you look at athletes who have trained all their life to be amazing swimmers, for example, and suddenly some 6-foot guy with, you know, size 13 feet wins every gold medal. It's just crazy, right? And it's just wrong. I know these are extreme versions of it, but it's how crazy it's got. And I think it's why so many people now are scared to say what they think anymore, because the woke world will come down, crashing down on them and say they need to be cancelled or taken off, or their movies can't ever be watched again, or their TV shows can't be taken again. And what the sort of irony of all of this is that, you know, and you will have them on GB News, will have people defending woke and all these different issues. But of course, they're on a channel that is allowing people to have freedom of speech. You say what you think, someone else will say what they think. We don't all have to agree, but we can do it fairly and squarely. That's what we do. We're meant to live in this wonderful democracy. So if you agree with woke, brilliant. If you don't, we're allowed not to agree. And the problem is, if you don't agree now, it seems that you're wrong.
It's very bullying.
Wrong. It is.
It's very bullying. It's got people frozen in their lives because they don't know what to say, whether they're right or wrong. And it's got people like you, Mark, who can't say what you want to say because it's you don't know what side it's going to fall on or how it's going to come back and get you. It's the saddest thing. But like everything else, it'll go away.
You think it's cyclical?
Sure.
Stanley?
Yeah, I'm not sure that anybody's going to stop Mark saying what he wants to say. I mean, I've
it
listened
just
to him.
did.
No, I think, but my feeling is I feel a little bit uncomfortable at the turn of this conversation. I look at the thing which you began with, which was Meghan's own definition, and she said, alert to injustice in society, especially racism. Now, that was Meghan. Remember, she is speaking in America as an American. You produced a wonderful litany of complaints, Mark, and it was brilliantly put together. But I say to myself, this lady, who had a rather brilliant history of bringing herself, forward, putting herself into a position which she has done an awful lot, I suspect, of good for many of the causes she espouses. And I certainly don't want to come out in any way as a Meghan Markle basher. So I would say all the things you've said may well apply here in this country, and maybe they apply also in America. But I suspect that there are some real injustices in America, which she is pointing out, and she deserves credit for that.
And I think that's a really fair point, Stanley. Getting back to political correctness, though, because a lot of people don't know what woke means, and it is an abstract term, but the best description I can give is that it's an extreme form of political correctness. We saw it, didn't we, Stanley, in the 90s when a lot of comedians suddenly became very unfashionable, the likes of Jim Davidson and others. And they were replaced by more political comedians such as Ben Elton. So it feels like another wave of political correctness is sweeping the nation and the Western world. But, Stanley, this time round it feels more toxic and more illiberal. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I think that is possibly true, and there's some fantastic films which one wonders whether they will be shown now.
Yeah.
I mean, the Dear People's Front and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, we've got to fight hard to make sure we don't go over the top. But I think there are some things where Meghan Markle probably does get it right, and I'm absolutely not among the bash Meghan Markle tendency.
Are you woke, Stanley Johnson?
That was the woke that was. That was I very much enjoyed the thing in those days.
Nicely handled with a one-liner. Listen, we'll get back to Stanley, Angie, and Neil very shortly because we've got the papers from 10:30. All of the papers with full panel reaction. But next up, your emails, and we're going live to Fleet Street. And the Daily Express online political editor, David Maddox, he's just put tomorrow's paper to bed. So we'll get a first sneak peek at tomorrow's papers next.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness, brilliant.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
A big reaction to my take at 10. Meghan Markle on her podcast has defended the word woke. She says it's good to be woke. I have highlighted in my take at 10 that being woke is quite the opposite of being nice and empathetic, given that at its heart is cancel culture and a toxic illiberalism. But it's all about opinions. Let's get to yours. Robert says, Dear Mark, congratulations regarding your definition of woke. All those examples are exactly what you've pointed out. Well done, says Robert. Mark, great line from Mark. Mark says, I can't disagree about the drag acts and children. A potential disaster. Wigs could be pulled off, heels or nails broken, and makeup smudged. Brilliant. Wonderful sideways take from Mark. Keep those emails coming. Elisa says, thank you, Mark. Your description of woke is spot on. We need to spread the word. Please make your monologue go viral. Well, Elisa, thank you for that. If you're watching the programme, do jump onto Twitter. Give it a look, give it a retweet. And if you don't agree, do drop me an email, mark@gbnews.uk. Fantastic monologue, says Andy. Thank God for you and for GB News. Louise, well said, Mark, on all things woke. Meghan Markle does not like anyone else having an opinion different to hers. Jonathan, last but not least, woke means we begin to hate. It is the antithesis of free speech. Well, this programme is the home of free speech. Keep those opinions coming, mark@gbnews.uk. But at this time, every Saturday night, we get a sneak peek at tomorrow's Sunday papers with a full roundup in 10 minutes' time. But so far, I've managed to get a copy of the Sunday Express. And they lead with shameless. FIFA boss defends Qatar over human rights record and brands the West racist. MPs blast idiotic rant and says he's losing the plot on the eve of the big kickoff. That's FIFA boss Gianni Infantino, who's been infantile, if I'm honest with you, sparking outrage after branding critics of the World Cup host Qatar racists and hypocrites in a bizarre 56-minute rant. OK, we'll get to the opinions very shortly from David Maddox on that. But let's have a look at The Observer now. Starmer will abolish Lords to restore trust in politics. Labour leader plans a new elected chamber. No more peerages for lackeys and donors. Diva Las Vegas. That's Adele is back in Vegas. Of course, she had that ill-fated series of performances a year ago, but she's back on stage and apparently wowing the crowds. What a talented girl from Tottenham she is. Global splits threaten fight to combat climate crisis. Deep divisions threaten to derail the world's chances of limiting the climate crisis as negotiators struggle to keep nations working together to tackle global warming. This as COP27 reaches its conclusion. More papers at 10:30, but let's get immediate reaction. Let's go to Fleet Street now, and the political editor for The Express Online, which is one of the very best political websites in the country, and that is David Maddox. Just getting the line to David right now. I can wait, Sebastian. I'm very patient. I've got Budweiser, for God's sakes. David Maddox, cheers. Listen, David, you've just put the paper to bed, and your big splash on the front page is about Qatar and this debacle of a press conference from the FIFA chief. Tell me more.
Well, I can't take credit for this one, but it's a great front page from my colleagues on the Sunday Express, and I think it just sums up the absolute lunacy of what happened earlier on today with the president of FIFA. I mean, let's just reel back a bit and just remember when this World Cup was awarded and the allegations, let's still call them allegations, but I mean, let's be honest, it's probably true, of corruption and things around it. And the whole reason that Qatar got this completely, I mean, the most completely inappropriate award. And that was the same day as they awarded Russia the last World Cup, I mean, which was bad enough in its own right. And now today the president of FIFA seems to want to double down on this and say that the problem is that the West is racist. I mean, it beggars belief, really.
It is. It's a very defensive response. And this follows the very bad optics of a decision at the last minute to stop fans drinking beer during the games. This after Budweiser stumped up £60 million to get their name in the stadium.
Yes. I noticed they collected the money before they announced their decision, which was rather interesting. They're not actually short of money in Qatar. I was over there last year on a goodwill trip to find out whether all the allegations about them were true. I have to say some of them weren't true. Some of it has been exaggerated, certainly along the lines of the slave labour and things. But, this is a very oppressive state. It's not the worst in the Middle East. I mean, thank God the World Cup didn't go to somewhere like Saudi Arabia, but it's pretty bad. Beer, I think, is the least of the problems. I mean, I wouldn't want to be a gay fan going across to Qatar to follow the football. There are all sorts of issues over there, and really, FIFA, the Olympic Committee, and all the rest of them need to think twice before they dabble in these waters again.
The World Cup's going to be massive for the Daily Express, whose sports coverage is excellent. Will we ever get round to talking about football, or will it be overshadowed by the politics?
I'm slightly worried it's going to be overshadowed by the politics. I mean, we have a problem of Qatar and its politics on one side, but you've just had an excellent discussion on woke. I suspect the woke counter reaction is going to be even worse on the other side, and we're going to be seeing, the England football team unfortunately has had issues with embracing wokeism and taking the knee and all the rest of it. And it looks like some of the other squads are doing the same. This may well end up being the most political World Cup in the history of the tournament.
Let's get to your area of expertise, David, and that's Westminster politics. Front page of The Observer. Keir Starmer will abolish the House of Lords to restore trust in politics. No more peerages for lackeys and donors. Is this a smart move or a gimmick, do you think?
If he actually means it, I'd say hallelujah. I mean, I never thought I'd say that I wholeheartedly agree with Keir Starmer, but I pretty much do. I mean, after sitting through all that, I used to be a fan of the House of Lords, experts and things, and but having sat through 4 or 5 years of the Brexit negotiations and the way that the House of Lords is locked down by the establishment Remainer class and people like Lord Adonis, who have never stood for election for anything, pontificating and using their completely undeserved position to stop the will of the people and all the rest of it. I mean, I can hardly believe it's Keir Starmer who wants to get rid of this rabble, given that they were his main allies for all those years. But he's absolutely right. I mean, best rid of them. I mean, at the moment, it's used as a retirement home or a kind of place to put people who've done you a favour, and it's completely wrong. It needs to go.
Tomorrow's Sunday Express looks like a cracking read. My sincere thanks to the political editor for the Express Online, David Maddox. Thanks, David. Catch up soon. Brilliant stuff. Well, we've got the papers uninterrupted with my brilliant panel straight after this. See you in 3.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky. That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg. And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness, and then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
It's exactly 10:30. Yes, Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In is a tight ship. It's time for this. Yes, it's time now for an extended look at tomorrow's papers, and it's the Sunday papers, hot off the press. So let's take another look at the Express. That's right, the Sunday Express are leading with shameless. FIFA boss defends Qatar over human rights record and brands the West racist. MPs blast idiotic rant and says he's lost the plot on the eve of the big kickoff. Adele's triumphant return to Vegas is another story on the front page of the Sunday Express. Let's go to the Sunday Telegraph now. Zahawi, we want to cut tax before the election. The Conservatives will still want to cut taxes before the next election happens, Nadeem Zahawi, the party chairman, has said, amid growing anger from party members over the autumn statement. Well, that's very much the flavour of my big opinion monologue tonight, which is that I believe that tax cuts are coming, just not now. First migrant death recorded at Manston Detention Centre. Very sad story there in the Sunday Telegraph. Sunak puts boots on the ground in Kyiv as he visits President Volodymyr Zelensky. And don't cave in to pressure to buy children smartphones, says the Children's Commission. The Sunday Times now, and a story that has, I've got to say, delighted Stanley Johnson. We'll get to it shortly. Britain mulls Swiss-style ties with Brussels. The government believes EU relations are thawing and could lead to frictionless trade. We'll get to that good news story shortly. Also, Cash for Honour's police pass file on King's aid to prosecutors. A file of evidence into the Cash for Honours scandal embroiling King Charles and his longest-serving aide has been passed by police to the Crown Prosecution Service. The plot thickens. The Independent next. Qatar 2022 and the human cost that tarnishes football's greatest prize. And funding boost won't save the NHS from crisis. There, a story from The Independent. In his autumn statement, the Chancellor promised a further £6.6 billion, yet health chiefs say the money will allow the NHS to stave off disaster but not achieve its long-term targets. They would say that, wouldn't they? The Observer next. Starmer will abolish the House of Lords to restore trust in politics. The Labour leader plans a new elected chamber. No more peerages for lackeys and donors. Also, comeback tours. Are the likes of Blur and Pulp burnishing their legends or tarnishing them by going back on stage? Global splits threaten fight to combat the climate crisis. There are jittery nerves at COP27 as it reaches its conclusion. Diva Las Vegas, Adele back on stage in Sin City. The Sun on Sunday now. Stars jungle meltdown. Boy George quit threat. Boy George threatened to quit I'm a Celebrity in an explosive rant at crew after they refused him a ride in a golf buggy. The singer stormed off, stole an apple, then hid behind trees so he couldn't be filmed. Once a diva, always a diva. The Sunday Mirror now. Your country needs you. World Cup legend Sir Geoff Hurst tells Gareth Southgate's stars, you can do it. Well, listen, let's hope we can embody some of that spirit of 66. The Sunday People next. Come on, you Lions. England fans and players ready for action. And last but not least, the Daily Star Sunday. Free Inside World Cup pull-out guide. We definitely know that the competition is about to kick off. Also, FIFA boss dribbles on and on. Infamy, you've all got it, infamy, as World Cup boss Gianni Infantino is very infantile with his comments about anyone criticising Qatar as being racist. And those are your front pages. Reacting to tomorrow's papers are my brilliant panel. We have Neil Fox, Angie Best and Stanley Johnson. So, look, let's get to some of these stories. And, look, why don't we discuss this story that you're very keen on, Stanley? Britain mulls Swiss-style ties with Brussels. It's the Sunday Times. The government believes EU relations are thawing and could lead to frictionless trade. Why does this cheer you so?
Well, bully for Caroline Weaver, Henry York and Tim Shipman. This is such an important issue because what is our major trading partner? It is the EU. What did the EU-UK withdrawal agreement say? It said, let's try and keep a level playing field. That was the nature of the deal which we had. But now we have a situation, really important. I mentioned it before. Rees-Mogg, before he left office, introduced a bill which is called Retained EU Law Bill, which would involve sunsetting something like 4,000 EU laws which have been absorbed, often written by British people like myself while they were there, and certainly British ministers, British people.
Some of them in self-interest?
No, I'd say that we really participated wholeheartedly in this suite of legislation. Now, the real nonsense at this moment, as we seek to rebuild a relationship with Europe, nobody's saying Brexit has to be undone. We're not saying that, but we have to rebuild this relationship. Otherwise, our economic prospects, you already mentioned that, by the way, in your introduction, when you said, I think, some self-inflicted wounds. Let's not go down that route, but we have a real chance now of making sure we can build the bridge. The Swiss-style idea is a good idea. Nobody's saying that they're going to write our rule book, but what we are saying is we're going to keep as close as possible with the level playing field concept, the no regression concept. As an environmentalist, I was horrified that Rees-Mogg was going to roll back something like 700 EU laws, which we've absorbed. Pollution, air pollution, water, waste, the lot.
But wasn't it so that we could activate our own? That we could be even more green?
No, I like that idea. I mean, it's an idea which people put around. But the reality is the whole thrust of our environmental and, by the way, social policy as well. The Workers' Time Directive. I'm amazed that actually the Labour Party hasn't made much more fuss about this government proposal to, sunset something like 4,000 laws. Anyway, in a nutshell, this is a really important story, and it's very good news to me that the Chancellor of the Exchequer appears to say we must rebuild this link with Europe.
But is this akin to membership of a form of a customs union or single market membership?
Well, why on earth
because
not?
If it is, then that is effectively remain by stealth, isn't it?
Not at all. Absolutely not. I mean, you can have a form of customs union, you can have a form of single market, you can say, but we're not going to have freedom of movement or something like that.
Sure.
And
we
we're not
can't have single market without freedom of movement, and you can't have customs union without being prevented from making trade deals unilaterally.
I'm not going to go into that. What I do know is if we're going to have a serious working relationship with the EU, we have to maintain what is called the acquis, the existing set of rules. And that is absolutely vital.
And do you think, actually, with that line from, as you mentioned, Caroline Wheeler, Harry York and Tim Shipman, that relations have thawed, that actually, as time goes by, the politics of this will actually sort of pass away, and we'll have the economics?
Well, very interesting you say this. It all depends on the courage of our leader here, and I'm talking about Rishi Sunak. He has to be ready to face down the ERG, the Tory right on this. They've had their day, for heaven's sake. They had their day way back in the Maastricht debate with Mr. Major. But the Bill Cashes of this world, the Rees Moggs of this world, the Ian Duncan Smiths of this world, the Steve Bakers of this world have to say, sorry, folks, you had your battle, you won your battle, now we have to move forward.
However, and it's a very sunny, optimistic vision, Angie, that Stanley's got, but some will watch this, especially those that voted for Brexit, and they'll be concerned that what they're hearing here is its reversal.
I have absolutely... There's so many things about Brexit that we wanted, that's why we voted for it, but I know nothing about all of this. I don't know enough to make an intelligent comment about it.
Well, that's refreshing. May I ask a personal question?
Yeah.
Did you vote in the Brexit referendum?
None of your business.
OK. Fair enough.
I'm teasing,
Yeah.
I'm teasing. I didn't, no.
No,
Because I don't know enough about it.
what's your view now? I mean, you've got an interesting perspective because you spend a lot of time in America.
Yeah. I like what...
Stanley?
So, beg your pardon, Stanley.
that's right.
I like what Stanley said, having a friendship, talking to them, not ignoring Europe, talking to them and saying, well, come on then, let's do this. Keeping Brexit, but forging ahead and...
I appreciate Stanley's positive energy because that was the theme of my Big Opinion monologue tonight.
Yeah.
But, Neil, the Prime Minister now, he treads a fine line, doesn't he?
He does tread a very fine line. And, you know, I've been on this show before and I did not vote for Brexit. And there were lots of it that that really irritated me about Europe. And I think, you know, as a young teenager growing up, we were in the common market. That seemed to be a lot of common sense. They were our nearest trading partners, and they were our biggest market, and we needed to trade with them. So we did. Then it became the EEC. That seemed to be fine. We became the European Community. That was fine. The EU was one stage too far, and I think that's probably what myself and many other people were probably irritated about, was I didn't necessarily want to be part of a European Union. There was lots of things we need to work out between each other, our friends and our allies, but not everything. So we didn't want to be one united Europe, like the United States of America. And I think that's why a lot of people voted to get out. But like everything, it's not black and white. Everything's a bit grey. And we have to find a way of negotiating and getting on a better footing with our European friends and partners so that we can trade with them properly and sensibly and move on. Otherwise, we are missing a massive opportunity. They're the people we trade with and they trade with us. We just need to get things on a better footing now. And I don't think this is coming out of Brexit. I think it's absolutely Brexit. We had Brexit, OK, and we've, and obviously Boris got us out, OK, and that's got signed. Yeah. But we need to move on now. We're in stalemate at the moment. We just need to move forward. This is common sense.
Do you think we've started to go beyond the politics now in relation to the EU? That we've served our time. The punishment for Brexit has happened.
Yeah, we've been on the naughty step for a bit.
Right.
You know, they hated us for a bit, of course, and every time anyone who's been over going on holiday, you realise, right, we're in the separate queue now. The Brits are there waiting to go through passport control, going, this is a pain in the arse, isn't it? But I think things will slowly get back to a bit more of a smart norm, and I really hope so, because otherwise we are being foolish. You know, we got to look forward. We have economic problems, OK? They have economic problems. We all need to trade with each other. We just need some common sense. And I think now Rishi and hopefully his government will now start talking. I think the way you saw him handle himself at the G20, he feels comfortable and they look comfortable with him, and hopefully he's a man they can all do business with, and we can just still have Brexit, but we can still trade with them and have a relationship.
Fortunately, the one thing that's constant in this world is change. And hopefully the people over there will be changing their minds. We're changing our minds. The MPs or whatever they're called in Europe will start to change, and different ones will come in with different opinions.
Let's just think of the other issue you mentioned, which was the COP27. because it bears thinking of the UK's position alongside the EU. The EU took a really important step at COP27. We haven't had the final result of it yet, but it proposed that where we are talking about funding the developing countries to deal with the effects of climate change, and that is one of the crucial aspects of COP27, the EU proposed that actually countries which at the moment don't put up the money, notably China, notably India, notably some of the other countries which were defined as developing countries, should nonetheless put their money on the table as part of that general deal. Now, the point I'm making is it's absolutely vital that the UK, may not be in the EU any longer, but it's vital that we work together with all these people.
Yeah.
Stanley, you actually, listen, you're always a compelling political commentator. You went viral this week in an interview clip in which you said that limiting the amount people fly or having a sort of an allowance of air miles was the plan. Care to elaborate on that?
Well, it's absolutely clear to me. Here you have a sense, taking the conclusions of COP, that we're way beyond trying to get to the 1.5. The odds are getting 1.5 would be a fantastic achievement. There's no doubt about it that in the end, the nations of the world, the sectors of the world, will have to say, look, we've got to have plans in energy, in transport, in agriculture, in food, in consumerism. And how are those plans going to be divvied up in the end? They're going to be divvied up because by agreement we say, yes, we do have emission reductions, which we're all going to stick to. And if that means, you took the example I gave it, of flying, if that means that actually we have to somehow, as a country, say, look, here we have the global aviation, and we know that's producing, I think, is it 3% of total emissions now? We need to get that down. Then the countries between themselves are going to have to say, look, actually, we're all going to have to take the hit in this one. And how do you spill that down? You spill it down somehow. Now, how you actually ration it out is another matter. I mean, in the end, you certainly don't want people flying in individual private jets, you know.
But might we all have a carbon allowance in which if we've heated the house too many days of the year, we've driven our car too much, we can't fly away on holiday?
There could well be. I mean, there is a thought that there
do we want to live in that kind of world? And who decides how much we get?
Well, if you want to have a world to live in, that's the route you may well have to do. You see what I mean? This is what we're trading off.
But the elite will still get their holidays and their flights, won't they, and their second homes?
They may or may not, but you might still have a world to live in. And at the moment, there is no doubt about it that some serious measures have to be taken in lots of these. Now, the good news, and you mentioned this also in your introduction, Mark, the good news is there's some dramatically good things which can happen, which is the changes in energy strategy, because those are not only going to give environmental benefits, but huge economic benefits as well.
Massively, and Britain leads the world in green tech, a great potential employer, and we're very good at innovation. And of course, we're ahead of the pack in renewables already, aren't we?
Well, that's the point.
Yeah, so lots of positives. Many more positives to come from my fantastic panel. Next up from the papers, should parents have a say in their children's choice of partner? And has adultery become the norm? Two very hot potato topics, plus a few more bits and pieces from the paper. Nadeem Zahawi, the Tory chairman, says that the Conservatives want to cut tax before the election. And Keir Starmer wants to scrap the House of Lords. We'll get to that shortly. See you in a minute.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Many more stories from the papers in the company of Neil Fox, Angie Best and Stanley Johnson. Now look, here's a fascinating question. Should parents have a say in their children's choice of partner? That was a question posed to the Telegraph's Richard Madeley, of whom, by the way, I'm a huge fan. Love Madeley. One member of the public disapproved of the love of their daughter's life, a trained assassin. Dear Richard, I hate my daughter's trained assassin boyfriend. Yeah, the clue's in the title. But should parents have a say in the choice of partner? Angie?
Tips are daft.
But
do you think my son would let me?
When relationships end, right, especially, it's always the woman who says, I wish I'd listened to my mother. My mother was right about him.
I will love everybody my son loves. If my son falls in love with a woman, I will love her too.
I think that's very reckless. Because your son will bring home some right slappers.
I'm going to tell him you said that. No, actually, he never has. He's very, very particular.
There's the woman you date and then the woman you take home to your parents.
Exactly.
And by the way, it works the same for boys as well.
I've met one so far, and he's 40 years old. My son is 40. I've met two of his girlfriends.
Oh, God. I see. And he's got a current girlfriend at the moment.
Yes.
Right. And rating out of 10?
I haven't met her,
Oh, you've not met her?
No, I've only ever met two.
If you thought that she was a dreadful person, would you say that to your son?
Absolutely not. It's called life. It's called learning.
But don't you need to warn him away from danger?
No, of course.
You say to him, look, I've met girls like this before. I know exactly what they're like. I know exactly what she's going to do to you.
No, because it might not happen. Then what do you do? I want to be friends with my son forever. There is not going to be anything worth having an argument.
Well, I go the other way. I think we bring back arranged marriages now.
Really, Mark? Yeah. No,
the success rate of arranged marriages is
extremely
high. Higher than conventional marriages.
No, it is, exactly.
It's actually, it might be a very good idea if you want your... Yeah.
I don't know. Would my oldest daughter's 21, then I've got a 20-year-old son, a 16-year-old daughter. So my daughter's had the same boyfriend for 3 years now. Luckily, he's a brilliant, lovely fella. Now, then who knows whether it lasts or not. But if she started to bring someone home that was not good, I mean, it'd be very tempting to say something, but I
Smelling
think...
of drink, tattoos, torn T-shirts.
Stop talking about yourself. No, I would say, look, I think you've just got to live with it, haven't you? I think what I probably brought home, and you know, when I got taken home and to meet my girlfriends when I was, you know, what do the parents think, right?
You introduced them to future radio and TV legend Neil the Dr. Fox.
When my mum was introduced to George, she said to the local newspaper, "He's not good enough for my daughter."
Isn't that wonderful? What a zinger of a line. If that's not a headline, nothing is. How about you, Stanley? Do you, and you've got lots of kids, have you ever advised them against a certain choice of partner?
I have been thrilled. I've had 6 children. They've all been married. They all are married. And as far
Several times.
As far as I'm concerned, they're all part of one great family, and I try to remember the birthdays and I try to remember the grandchildren.
He's so diplomatic.
And with Christmas coming up, I tell you, it's a big job.
Dream father-in-law Stanley Johnson. Look, only a few seconds for this one, but a study in the papers has found that affairs boosts self-confidence, but in particular, it gives women more energy and more life satisfaction. So the question is adultery now normal? What do you think, Angie? Have we changed our attitude to affairs?
I have no clue. I've never done it, and I wouldn't have the time or energy, and I would hate to be a liar.
Yeah, that's what Mark Twain said. Don't be a liar, because then you don't have to have a good memory.
I think Mark Twain, as always, got it completely right.
Yeah, what do you think, Neil?
Yeah, well, I think that's the smartest advice. The Mark Twain advice is smart. We know it happens, though. You know, marriages fail and what have you.
Do you think attitudes have changed in recent years?
Well, I think it's become a little...
era?
I think it's become more socially acceptable, or there's less of a stigma now when people have affairs and break up. But it's still sad.
According to the statistics, marriage is pretty much out of date anyway. Do you see what I mean? Like 1 in 100 people getting married.
Well, I do hope Mrs. Dolan isn't watching. Can I thank my brilliant panel of Stanley, Angie and Neil, and most importantly to you for your company. Loved having you for 3 hours. We're from 8 every Saturday. We're back tomorrow.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking wet in the east as a band of rain continues its progress across the UK. Let's look at the details. Starting off in Scotland, it'll be a very wet start in the east. Heavy rain falling on saturated ground brings the risk of further flooding, with snow over higher ground. Meanwhile, Northern Ireland is looking mostly dry with just a few showers, most likely towards northern coasts, and it won't be as cold as Saturday morning. The overnight rain will have cleared northwest England. Here there'll be some clear spells at first, but also a few blustery showers. A similar picture for Wales, though perhaps fewer showers here. For many, it will be a dry and bright start with some sunshine through the morning. Temperatures near normal for November. In the East Midlands, it will be wet first thing, but rain will quickly clear away with some brighter spells feeding in from the west throughout the morning. The rain will take a little longer to clear East Anglia. Here we can expect some heavier bursts through the morning, but it should turn dry and brighter by lunchtime. Around the south coast, it will be a fine morning for many, especially for central parts. Further east, rain will be clearing away, whilst the west, we can expect some showers. As the band of rain clears eastwards, sunnier skies will follow through the morning, but also plenty of blustery showers. And that's how the weather is shaping up during